it's award season. We've already had the Defensive Player of the Year be announced, which is Jaren Jackson Jr. I will get into that in a little bit. I do want to say I think he's more than deserving of winning this award. Soon they're going to have the announcements for basically every other award that isn't MVP. I think they're going to save the MVP. If I remember correctly, they saved it for right around the time of the conference finals last year. So all the finalists are out. I'm going to give you guys my finalists if they should differ from the league's finalists. I'm also going to give you guys my all NBA teams, all three of them. And when it comes to the MVP and when it came to the all NBA teams, I just want to say this. I'm sure that I'm not going to agree with at least some of the people who stumble across this piece of media. I do want to say I had no joy in having to pick the MVP this year. I had no joy in having to fill out my all NBA teams because there is just so much talent in the league this year. It was exceptionally difficult for me to decide on the 15 best players because there were so many talented guys. There were so many guys who were deserving of being on an all NBA team that didn't make it, whether it was because I felt they didn't play enough games or because like the situation wasn't um charitable to them. And then of course the MVP, I figure, we might as well lead with that. The MVP, uh, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid, the three finalists, the three most deserving candidates. Jason Tatum would be my number 4, and Donovan Mitchell would be my number 5. Each one of these three guys deserves to win the MVP. If we could do a three-way tie for MVP, this would be the year to do it. You look at Giannis, the best player on the best team in the league, averaged 31, 12, and 6, basically, shot 55% from the field, had a historical season. I think is the only player in NBA history to average 30, 10, 5 while shooting 55% from the field. And the craziest thing is that this was almost like a down year for Giannis. Even though he's like without a doubt the most dominant player in the NBA on both sides of the court consistently, it didn't feel that way this year. And I kind of like I don't understand why because statistically this was an incredible season and no one is going to discount that. Next, we have Nikola Jokic, averaged damn near 25, 12, and 10, was the best player on the best team in the Western Conference. Another historical season. I mean, he technically didn't average a triple double, but he was 2/10 of an assist away. The best passing big man the NBA has ever seen. Like, also incredibly dominant in his own way, almost the polar opposite of Giannis's dominance, whereas Giannis is a physical freak of nature. Jokic is so unathletic and so just does not look like he would be in the running for MVP, and yet here he is leading the Denver Nuggets to being the best team in the Western Conference and doing it while also maintaining really, really spectacular shooting averages. I think shot close to 61% from the field this year. In the paint, there is no better finisher. He is the best finisher, whether it's floaters, whether it's playing in the post, whether it is getting a little crafty around the basket. He is him. And then lastly, we have Joel Embiid, the league leading scorer this year for the second year in a row, averaged about 33 points a game, grabbed 10 rebounds, 4 assists, nearly 2 blocks, 1 steal, just also another incredibly dominant performance from one of the best centers in the NBA, from the most polished post player we have seen in many years. I mean, Embiid, although Philly is third in the Eastern Conference, they have a legitimate chance of winning a championship this year, and they're not doing that without Joel Embiid, without his ability, or with I don't even want to say his ability, his evolution as an offensive player and as a defensive player. He is now maybe not a legitimate 3-level scorer, but he is a handful in the paint. No one can check him in the post. There is not one player in the league right now that can handle Joel Embiid on the block. His ability to play from the high post, the low post, him being also able to pass out of the post more proficiently now has taken this Sixers offense to a new level. Tyrese Maxey is thriving because of it. James Harden is thriving because of it. Tobias Harris is thriving because of it. He's a much better playmaker. He's a much smarter playmaker as well. Turnovers, I'm sure Sixers fans will know that turnovers were an issue that Joel Embiid would have to overcome for them to be among the championship contenders, and he's done that. Also, defensively, at least statistically defensively, Joel Embiid is the best of these three. I think that Giannis is more versatile. He can guard on the perimeter while also in the paint, but just again, a foolproof case from each one of these three guys. And I struggled with this. In the beginning of the year, I picked Jason Tatum to be my NBA MVP. Later, it switched towards Kevin Durant. I was pulling for Kevin Durant because of what he was doing with Brooklyn. The just otherworldly efficiency is him being the best offensive and best defensive player on that team and really making the Nets look like a contender. This is an iteration of Kevin Durant that I don't know if many of us expected to see after the Achilles injury. And then over the last couple of months, I made a video. I talked about it on here, of course, and I put the video up on my YouTube channel talking about if Jason Tatum was still my NBA MVP. And while I didn't say yes or no, I was still leaning towards him. However, I had recognized the fact that I don't think I would have been able to pick an MVP until the final day of the year. And as I crossed the days off on my calendar, I'm going back and forth. Tatum, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid. And then it eventually became Giannis, Jokic, Embiid. And then more recently, it eventually just became Giannis and Jokic. I think that Nikola Jokic is going to win MVP this year. But my MVP is Giannis Antetokounmpo, the best player on the best team. That is really the only justification I feel that is necessary. Again, just look at the numbers. Close to 31 points a night, 11 boards, 6 assists, astonishing efficiency. And again, Milwaukee was the best team in the NBA by at least, compared to Denver by a decent margin. And also, I'm not forgetting about Giannis's dominance on defense. So, yeah, I'm rocking with Giannis for my league MVP. Again, I if Jokic wins this award, if Giannis wins this award, if Embiid wins this award, I will take no qualms with that. As I already mentioned, each of these three guys is immensely deserving to not only be a finalist, but to also be the winner. Now, Defensive Player of the Year was announced on Monday night. It was Jaren Jackson Jr., who had an absolutely spectacular defensive season, 3 blocks a night, I think close to 1 steal per game as well. Just in every regard, looked like the best interior defender in the NBA this year. He was named a finalist with Brook Lopez and Evan Mobley. Now, I have a huge issue with Evan Mobley being a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year over Nick Claxton. Is it because I'm biased? Yes, it's because I'm biased. Because I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. I absolutely adore Nick Claxton. But statistically, Nick Claxton was better than Evan Mobley in every regard per 100 possessions because Mobley played more minutes than Clax did, close to 35 a game, while Clax was just at about 30 per 100 possessions. Clax averaged 4.1 blocks per game. Evan Mobley averaged just 2.2. Again, still per 100 possessions. Nick Claxton averaged 1.4 steals per game compared to Mobley's 1.1. Even if you look at individual defensive rating, which is a fucking ass statistic, they are both at 108. This is at least courtesy of Basketball Reference. We move over to the advanced metrics. The only edge that Evan Mobley has is defensive win shares, wherein he's at 4.8. Clax is at just 4.0. Block percentage, Clax has the lead, 7.1 to 4.0. Defensive box plus minus, Clax again has the lead, 2.2 to 1.6. Additionally, Clax was the second best defender in terms of defensive field goal percentage among these four. He was holding opponents to just about 44% shooting overall, behind only Jaren Jackson Jr. In fact, when you compare not just Clax and Evan Mobley, but Clax to these four guys, he is top two in every statistic that I just talked about, defensive field goal percentage, of course, with the minimum being 10 defended field goals per game on average, blocks per 100 possessions, block percentage, defensive win shares, defensive box plus minus. Statistically, the only guy who was better than Nick Claxton this year was Jaren Jackson Jr. Of course, there is that whole, I don't want to say it's really a debate, but the one blemish on Jackson's resume is his games played. He's at 63 compared to 76 for Nick Claxton, 73 for Evan Mobley, and I want to say 81 or 80 for Brooke Lopez. I'm pulling up the comparison right now. Brooke Lopez was at 78. Evan Mobley had no business being on this list. Statistically, he doesn't compare to any of these other. He doesn't compare to these three on an individual level. Now, obviously, we can talk more about him more or less anchoring Cleveland, who had a very, very good defense, the best defense in the league. So I think, actually, I don't think, I know that's why he got named as a finalist. And, I get that, but I think that Defensive Player of the Year is an individual award. And I mean, also, Brooklyn did not have the best defense in the league. They were 13th overall in defensive rating, but they were still an above average defense. And also, Clax really, like, him being able to dominate that well on a porous defense, just speaks to his individual development as a player, because it is exceptionally difficult to have one guy shine on a defensive team that is just not that great, because that player has to work harder to compensate for the help that he's getting, whether it's on the perimeter or whether it is off the bench. So if Clax was a finalist, he would have been my Defensive Player of the Year, both on merit and also because of my biases. I'm not going to hide those, but the resume speaks for itself. However, because Nick Claxton was not a finalist, I do want to keep it, in line with what the NBA has given us. I have no issues giving Jaren Jackson Jr. the Defensive Player of the Year award. He was, without a doubt, the best defensive center in basketball this year. And I do think that it is more impressive also when you consider the fact that he has a hugely crucial role in Memphis's offense. So anytime you ask a big to both be a key contributor to your offense and also anchor your defense, that makes their defensive performance much more commendable. And also, if you think Brooke Lopez should have won, former net legend, I love Brooke. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be a fan of him until the playoffs are over, because I want to see my Brooklyn Nets be successful, but I would not be upset with you, especially because Brooke was the highest volume defender among these three. He averaged 22.6 defended field goals per game this season. For him to be this efficient, this disciplined, and also this talented, while also being the oldest guy by he is 11 years older than Clax and Triple J. Uh, it's incredible. And also the fact that this is a development that we didn't know he was going to make. His transformation into the best stretch five in the league right now, while also being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, is like unprecedented, I feel like. So shout out to Jaren Jackson Jr. No issues with this award. No issues with him winning. Now we're going to move on to Most Improved. The finalists are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson, and Lauri Markkanen. Last year, we had I don't want to say we had a debacle, but John Morant won Most Improved. And folks were like,
Oh, he didn't deserve it because he was already a star and he morphed into a superstar.
and this, that, whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's grand and all, but he still had the biggest leap of any player in the NBA last year. Or if it wasn't the biggest, it was close to. And I bring this up because we're kind of at that point with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Averaged 31, 5, and 5.5 this year, up from 24.5, 5, and 6 the previous year. An incredible jump. And also him doing this on a team and helping to lead the Oklahoma City Thunder to a play-in when they should have been contending for the first overall pick is exceptional. Although I don't know how much of that factors into this award because this award, the most improved award, is more. It's based mostly on statistics as it should be because you are analyzing a year-over-year jump. Jalen Brunson as well, an All-Star, an All NBA caliber guy, up to 24 points and 6 assists from 16 and 5. Although we did kind of see glimpses of this from him when he was the sole scorer on the Dallas Mavericks in their playoff run last year. We knew that Jaylen Brown had the potential to be him. He showed us that. Lauri Markkanen, who is my pick for most improved, did not show us anything like that until this year. Averaged 25 and a half points and damn near 9 rebounds this year for the Utah Jazz. An all-star, rightfully so, but he did this after averaging 15 points the year before. And not only that, there were talks about if this dude could even thrive in the NBA. He gets to Utah and he looks like I don't want to say Dirk Nowitzki-esque, but he starts putting up Dirk numbers. I mean, just the offensive growth and also the mental fortitude of a guy like Markkanen to bounce around the league, to be however old he is, 24, 25, and still has not found his place. The mental fortitude for him to take all of that to Utah and not let him be discouraged by it and to go out and have this incredible season. I know that Shea and Jalen Brunson have rock solid cases for this, but I don't see a world in which Lauri Markkanen does not win this award. I mean, an 11-point per game jump from a guy who previously had not shown anything like that. So I'm rolling with Lauri Markkanen. We're now going on to Rookie of the Year. This is no debate. This is Paolo Banchero. He's the only guy winning this award. Walker Kessler was a finalist. Jalen Williams for Oklahoma City was a finalist as well. But this is Paolo. Guy averaged, what did he average? I didn't even make notes on this because I just know Paolo's going to win the award. Averaged 20 points, about 7 boards, and just under 4 assists. There is nobody else. I did, of course, do a video on Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler and Jalen Williams are both exceptionally talented in their regards as well, but they're not competing with Paolo Banchero this year. And I don't expect, I expect a unanimous Rookie of the Year from the um from the voters this year. Sixth man. Okay. This award, I don't want to say it was mid because that would just be mean. Because all of these guys, by the way, the finalists were Emmanuel Quickly, Malcolm Brogdon, Bobby Portis. Notably, Norman Powell is not present. He led all reserves in scoring this past year. I'm pretty sure he was at like 17 a night. He's not present. If I had to guess, it's because he played in only 60 games this year, while Brogdon, Quickly, and Portis all were above 70. I want to say. I know Quickly was at 81. Bobby Portis was at 70, and Malcolm Brogdon was above 70. 67. Okay. So there's this, when you are talking about awards, generally, if a guy has better numbers but hasn't been as healthy, that is going to damage his case, unfortunately. And it did for Norman Powell. I think if he had played in 5 more games, he would have gotten the edge over Malcolm Brogdon, and he would have been my pick. But I'm rocking with Bobby Portis, averaged 14 and 10 this year for the Milwaukee Bucks. Malcolm Brogdon averaged 15, 4 and 4, and Emmanuel Quickly, who had an incredibly entertaining season, averaged 15, 4 and about 3 assists per game. I feel that Quick, while, deserving, I think when you're talking about sixth man and you're talking about teams like Milwaukee and Boston, the guys off the bench for that team have a much harder job than a guy like Emmanuel Quickly because the level that Bobby Portis and Malcolm Brogdon have to maintain coming off the bench is more is expected of them, and they are in a higher pressure situation. And for them to be able to perform like that coming off of the bench, not knowing when their number is going to be called. I mean, they know they're first off, but they don't know when that's going to be. Also, sometimes you're going in and playing with the starters, so you have to adapt to their chemistry. You have to fit in, not fuck anything up. I just think that it requires more of a bench player, and I'm rocking with Bobby Portis because he's got to back up Giannis. He's got to back up Brook Lopez. He's got to be a floor spacer. He's got to be a defensive anchor. He's got to lock down the boards, and he did all of that. This was the best case scenario for Bobby Portis. And as we know, contending teams are only as good as their bench. And Bobby Portis coming off of that bench gives Milwaukee a legitimate six-man lineup that Mike Budenholzer can rely on, especially in the postseason when the rotations are cut short. Now we have I believe it's the inaugural Jerry West Award, which is the Clutch Player Award, which I guess honors the clutchest player in the NBA. Now, this, of course, is an interesting award because there are ways to quantify clutch performance. The NBA has instituted their whole clutch criteria, which is in the final 5 minutes of a game where the score is within five is considered clutch time. Now, the clutchest players, at least how we think of them, Damian Lillard, LeBron. Like when you think of clutch, you think of who is getting the ball with the game on the line. That's LeBron. That's Dame. That's KD. That's Steph. That's Kyrie. The issue, however, I don't want to say it's an issue with this award, is that sometimes the clutchest players are not in clutch performances because their teams are just so dominant. Like Giannis and the Bucks are not in a lot of clutch opportunities because they're the best team in the league. This class, however, De'Aaron Fox, Jimmy Butler, and DeMar DeRozan is not short on talent. Okay, you can make a case for giving the ball to Jimmy Butler at the end of a game, probably a playoff game because playoff Jimmy is way, way deadlier than regular season Jimmy. Also, De'Aaron Fox, All NBA caliber guy. You'd put the ball in his hands. DeMar DeRozan, also all-star caliber guy, all NBA caliber guy. I went with De'Aaron Fox on this award simply because he was statistically the best clutch performer. Averaged 5 clutch points per game and led Sacramento to a 22-17 record in those contests. His 5 clutch points were also league leading. For comparison, DeMar DeRozan was at 4.7 clutch points, but yet Chicago was just 14-20, and that's largely because the team was just not good enough to close out. Jimmy Butler at 3.5 clutch points, 25 and 18 in those performances. So I think De'Aaron Fox wins the inaugural Jerry West Award. And lastly, we have Coach of the Year, a very, very, very solid class. We have Mike Brown, Coach of the Kings, Mark Daigneault, Coach of the Thunder, who is on here despite having a sub 500 record, and obviously we know why that is. It's because the Oklahoma City Thunder drastically outplayed their expectations. Like we thought that this is going to be like a 15-win team, and they finished 40-42 in a Western Conference that only got more competitive as the year went on. Now, also Joe Mazzulla, 57-25, second place in the Eastern Conference. Some other honorable mentions. I'd throw Jacques Vaughn in there. What he did with this Brooklyn Nets team after relieving Steve Nash 6 games into the season, after all this stuff going on with Kyrie, after how the team finished the season, after trading Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, you could make a case for him. You could make a case for JB Bickerstaff. I think, and this is no disrespect to Joe Mazzulla, I don't think Joe Mazzulla is going to get the props that I think he deserves, just because the Celtics do still have all of that residual talent. But I don't want his case to be overlooked because regardless, he was still a rookie head coach. Regardless of the fact that he had Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, he still had to command respect in that locker room. He still had to go out and micromanage 82 games. He still had to make adjustments, come up with a game plan. He had to do all of the things that a coach has to do, and he did that as a rookie. So I don't want his case to be poo-pooed. I do think that he will finish third. He's third on my ballot. I'm going with Mike Brown. What Mike Brown did with this Sacramento Kings team, is nothing short of miraculous. I thought that they were going to again continue to wallow in mediocrity after trading Tyrese Halliburton, and instead, they could very well make a finals run. They look fantastic. They look revamped. They are the most dynamic offense in the NBA. They are like a historically potent offense. You have an inside outside duo in De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis that is arguably the best in the league. Both of them are all stars. Sabonis averaged 19, 12, and 7 this year. De'Aaron Fox at 25 a night. And this team managed to be third in the Western Conference, only 3 games back of finishing second. Like, that is an elite turnaround from a team who historically had been the laughing stock of the NBA. So I think that Mike Brown wins this award, obviously deserves it. You could also obviously make the case for either Mark or Joe Mazzulla as well. So yeah, those are my awards. MVP, Giannis, Defensive Player of the Year. Jaren Jackson Jr. would have been Nicholas Claxton if he was a finalist, but unfortunately that is not the world that we live in. Most Improved, Larry Markkinen. Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero. Sixth man, Bobby Portis. Clutch Player, De'Aaron Fox. Coach of the Year, Mike Brown. And now we are on to the All NBA teams. Again, I must stress to you guys, I had no fun in cooking this up, okay? Absolutely negative fun. All I could think about was second guessing myself. Every pick I made, the only time I didn't second guess myself was when picking the centers, because there are only 3 All NBA caliber centers, at least with how the NBA does it. And I believe, and this will be the last year before going positionless, which should hopefully make everything much better, because it's fucking stupid that Joel Embiid is it. Okay, it's fucking stupid that Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis, the 3 MVP finalists, all can't be on the All NBA first team. Either Jokic or Embiid on everybody's ballot. One of them is going to be the second team All NBA, and that should not be the case, because the first team is supposed to acknowledge the 5 best players in the NBA. Whatever criteria you use, these guys, more or less, have been the 5 best guys over this past year. And to the most part, I feel that this doesn't have much debate, especially when you consider, you know, injury issues, team records, stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. My first team, Nikola Jokic at center. Forwards are Giannis and Jason Tatum, and my guards are Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Giannis and Tatum are locks. They are the only 2 locks on this list. As I said, Embiid has a first team case. I picked Jokic as my MVP runner up, therefore I believe he goes onto the first team. The guard situation. You have 4 guys who are contending for these 2 spots. You have Shai and Luka, as well as Donovan Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox. I went with Luka because although Dallas combusted towards the end of the year, Luka statistically was unmatched this year at the guard position. Averaged like 31 a night, 9 assists, 8 boards. Just if he didn't miss time towards the end of the year and had Dallas stayed in play-in contention, I think there would have been serious momentum for him as an MVP candidate, regardless of the fact that he had a worse record than all of the other finalists, simply because of how statistically dominant he was. And I'm not going to make this argument, but if you take Luka off of that Dallas Mavericks team, they win 7 games this year, I think. They were just not that great. And again, a large reason that they fell out of play-in contention and playoff contention is because Luka and Kai got hurt at the end of the year. So again, I went with Luka and Shai. I think that Shai is undeniably All NBA first team, an incredible jump, and also an incredibly unexpected performance from the Oklahoma City Thunder. My second team, center, Joel Embiid. My forwards are Jimmy Butler and Jaylen Brown, and my guards are Donovan Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox. I forgot how dominant Jaylen Brown was this year. I don't know how. Um, Jimmy Butler, of course, is always going to be in that All NBA second team because he's always on good teams. But in the regular season, his statistics are not eye catching. He averages like 21, 5 and 5. It is in comparison to some other forwards, it is, you know, not like mediocre, but when you think of the other guys who traditionally land as all NBA caliber forwards, looking at LeBron, who is not on the second team this year, you are looking at Kevin Durant, who is not on any of my teams this year because of his health issues. Like, those are the kind of guys we're talking about. But Jimmy Butler undeniably deserves to be on here. He is also very his advanced statistics push him over the edge. I mean, win shares, box plus minus, stuff like that. He is just an incredibly and undeniably talented player. And Jaylen Brown as well, averaged 26 a night this year, was a huge piece for the Celtics, especially when Jason Tatum was not healthy. And then the guards, De'Aaron Fox deserves to be there. Donovan Mitchell deserves to be there. Two guys who were key catalysts for their team. Donovan Mitchell, at least to me, had a bit of an unexpected outburst because I thought he was going to go to Cleveland and not fall off, but the amount of weapons that they have on that roster, like there are only so many shots to go around. But he went in and he proved that he is at the top of the hierarchy. It is him and then Darius Garland and then everybody else. And he did that every night. I mean, average 27 is like a top 5 MVP candidate for me. I mean, he's my fifth, but he's still there. And I think JJ Redick pointed this out, but Donovan Mitchell would have, had he been healthy for the entire season, Cleveland wins 54 games, or they had a winning percentage that would have put them on pace for 54 wins in games that he played in. So I think that the second team is solid. The only places that I am going to differ with other content creators, other fans, is Embiid and Jokic, and Donovan Mitchell and Luka. But I mean, Embiid and Jokic, it's a coin flip. Honestly, it's whoever is the runner-up for MVP is going on the second team. I feel like, and then with Luka and Donovan Mitchell, I understand that my way of looking at it is potentially a little flawed, but I also feel very strongly in the fact that statistically, Luka was one of the most dominant players in the NBA this year, and we're going down to the third team, which is where things get a little goofy because the third team is reserved for guys who either weren't on teams good enough or, missed a handful of games. And, I'm talking guys like Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, LeBron, Steph, Dame, guys like that, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson. All of these guys are vying for these spots. The only lock for the third team is Domantas Sabonis. I mean, those are the three guys. Jokic, Embiid, and Sabonis were the only All-NBA caliber centers on the ballot this year. Sabonis's case, you don't have to make a case for Sabonis. I also feel that Lauri Markkanen is a no-brainer. I mean, most improved player to me, averaged 26 and 9. The Jazz were way better than everybody expected. He deserves to be on an All-NBA team this year. I was struggling between LeBron and Anthony Davis. LeBron is my other All NBA third team forward. And listen, I loved Anthony Davis was great this year, and I can't even use the injury excuse because, LeBron wasn't particularly healthy either. I think that LeBron was more integral to the Lakers' playoff push than Anthony Davis was. You also can't overlook him averaging 38 and 7 at 38 years old. You simply can't. So LeBron is my other All NBA third team forward, and my two guards are Stephen Curry and Damian Lillard. These guys, we are gonna look back on these seasons for Steph and Dame in a couple of years, and statistically, they do not belong on the third team. Steph is at 29 6 and 6. Dame was at 32 4 and 7. These guys statistically do not belong on the third team. However, we have encountered my only, I don't even know what fucking word would go here, but we have encountered the thing that I talked about before. And it's the fact that, these guys, when they were on the court, they were the two best point guards in the NBA. When they were healthy, it was Stephen Curry and Damian Lillard. But they just did not play enough games for me to consider them for anything higher than the third team. And then also in regards to Portland, they were just not good enough as a team to put Dame higher than the third team. So yeah, we're just gonna quickly summarize this. All NBA first team: Nikola Jokic at center, Giannis Antetokounmpo at forward, Jason Tatum at my other forward, Luka Doncic at the guard position, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the other guard position. Second team: Joel Embiid is my center. My forwards are Jimmy Butler and Jaylen Brown, and my guards are Donovan Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox. And the third team: my center is Domantas Sabonis. My forwards are LeBron James and Lauri Markkanen, and my guards are Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. And the All NBA teams are tricky, man, because what is how much do you rely on individual statistics and also team success? Because that's a debate that we run into when we're looking for all stars. And I've always felt that the all star vote is more so on individual player performance. It also is like, who do you want to see in the all star game? I'd much rather see Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant, who have played less games than Rudy Gobert and Draymond Green. They just, it is just about entertainment in that regard. But I do feel that the All NBA teams should lean a little bit more towards team success. But honestly, the more that I look at it, the more that I see it's very similar in both regards. And if you were to add an All NBA fourth team and make it 20 guys, you would probably get the 20 All Stars because they're all in the same class. I mean, typically the 24 best players are selected to the All Star team, and the 15 best players are selected to the All NBA teams. So you're just trimming the fat on that. And honestly, this list that I've compiled, I feel is, at least in regards to their performances this past year, this is close enough to being the 15 best players in the NBA. I know that Kevin Durant in actual discussion is going to be there. I know that Anthony Davis is going to be there as well, but I don't feel that there is anything flagrantly wrong with this list.